Hi, my name is Sharon Frascioni, and I'm the clinical director of Stein Hospice. We will be interviewing some of our nurses so that everyone in the community can get to know who our nurses are. Presently, I'm sitting here with Joy Hall. Joy has been with the hospice since its inception. So Joy, tell us a little bit about yourself, how long you've been with the hospice, and some of the things you do in hospice.
I've been with the hospice for 7 years, and I take care of our residents at home, in the facilities, wherever the need arises.
And what is it about Stein Hospice that you feel makes us different than other hospices that you have seen?
With Stein Hospice, I believe we take the holistic approach where we have different disciplines such as social workers, the rabbi. We do get in touch with other spiritual leaders to take care of our residents, and we take care of the resident and their family members.
So Joy, you've been a nurse with Stein Hospice for 7 years now. Hospice, we know, is about quality of life. What is it that keeps you so focused and involved and staying in the hospice field?
I believe that someone should live and be comfortable until death. And that's what I mean by quality of life, that we make that patient comfortable right through the process.
Tell us about what you think about the complementary services that we offer to our clients.
I think it is, when you say that you're in hospice, you still have life. You live until you die. So what I would think, to have someone do therapy such as pet therapy, such as massage therapy, herb therapy, these things are components that help during the dying process.
And so my last question for you is, you know, yes, we want to give people a great quality of life until the end of life. And again, nobody knows how long that might be. But there is a lot of death in hospice. And what keeps you for 7 years you've been doing this now, what keeps you in the hospice field as a nurse?
I believe life has three components, which is birth, living, and death. And in each component you need a nurse. When you come into this world, you have a nurse that takes care of you. This is birth. During your lifetime, you have medical staff such as nurses and doctors that are taking care of you. And at death, I believe, at time of death, during the dying process, I believe you need someone to transition you into that phase. And that's, at the end of the day, it satisfies me, it makes me feel at peace that I am the nurse that was able to give that sort of services to the patients and their family.
So we're continuing our interviews with some of our staff members at Stein Hospice so that everyone gets to know who we are. And right now I'm sitting with Joanna Eula, who's been a hospice nurse for a really long time. Joanna, how long have you been a hospice nurse?
I've been a hospice nurse probably more than 8 years now.
And what keeps you in hospice? What is that so passionate about it that keeps you in hospice?
I love the part about hospice where we help families through a really tough time. That's my most favorite thing about hospice.
And you've worked for other hospices. What do you find the differences between other hospices and Stein Hospice?
Definitely, I have to say, we have smart nurses. We try to be very responsive to our patients, in especially emergency needs. We have a very involved medical director. We have a clinical director who doesn't try to micromanage us and trusts her nurses' capabilities, which is amazing and very unusual. And I'm not just saying that, Sharon.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you so much. So we are a faith-based hospice, which not many hospices can, are. How do you feel with our chaplain and our social worker that comes into play?
So often at end of life, the faith part comes into play, and it's so vital. People are re-examining their lives. They need someone to re-examine it with. Lori, our social worker, Rabbi Brian are there helping them with that and walking them through a process that's very difficult often.
So tell me what a typical day for you as a hospice nurse might be.
It depends on the needs of the patient that day. For example, yesterday I walked into a home. The family member had a lot of questions about medications, about the patient's decline, what was going on, doctor's involvement, nurse's involvement. Answered all those questions, spent a lot of time supporting her emotionally.
Well, thanks so much, Joanna, for talking with me today, and thank you for being one of Stein Hospice's nurses. This is Cindy Lemesis, one of our other nurses in the hospice, and Cindy's been with us how many years now?
3.5.
3.5 years. So Cindy, tell us what you love about hospice. Recently you were in the paper, an article was written that hospice is your passion. What does that mean?
It means that I work with my heart. To me, it means that I really love what I do. Hospice is my passion in nursing. We're taking care of people at the very end of their life. We're trying to give them the most comfort we can, with the most dignity we can. It's kind of hard to put in words, but it's something that I work with my heart when I work with hospice patients.
So hospice can be, I would think, very difficult. You're dealing with people at the end of life, but yet you say it's about living. What do you mean about it's about living?
I ask them what they wish they could do. And some people want to go to Atlantic City one more time. Some people want to dance one more time. And I give them permission to do it. They aren't able to, but just because they have permission to do it, it makes them feel a lot better. So that's what, when you say hospice is about living, we give them permission to live and permission to go on and do what they want to do for whatever time they have left.
And do you think that people understand that about hospice, or do you think that there's some kind of miscommunication in the community about what hospice really is?
Yeah, there's a huge miscommunication. Hospice, to everybody, to most people, is a death sentence. As soon as they hear the word hospice, they say, well, I might as well lay here and die. And that's not what hospice is about. You know, hospice is, like you said, about living, making the most of what we have. We've had people on hospice for years, so you could do a lot in that time. You can meet a lot of family, or be with a lot of family members. You can accomplish a lot in a year's time.
You can be discharged from hospice if you do well. What do you think the reason is that people are discharged from hospice? I mean, that seems strange.
I think in the hospital, a lot of times those people come from hospital to rehab to hospice. And I think when they're in the hospital, they're so very sick, the doctors think that they're not going to live more than 6 months because they're just not getting any better. But once they get home and they have hospice care, which includes an aide, a volunteer, the nurse, of course, a chaplain, or ours is a rabbi. When people get home and have all that support, they begin to feel better and get better, and they have more hope to live, and they live. And when they do, fortunately for them, we discharge them, we graduate them, is what we say, and then they go on to live productive lives again.
So to me, it seems that hospice is definitely, if you have Medicare, a good choice at end of life, because you're being asked to live, you're given more help, and obviously if you're doing well, you're not going to be on hospice. So it seems like it's a good decision for people who are given that terminal diagnosis.
It's an excellent decision. It's a win-win situation, because if you happen to not get better and don't live very long, you've got a lot of care and a lot of support. If you do get better, we graduate you.
So this is Mary Jane Yoder. She's one of our nurses. She's also our community liaison. She visits doctors' offices and hospitals, spreading the word about what hospice does and how it helps people. So how long have you been with Stein Hospice?
Almost 2 years.
What do you do on a daily basis as part of your role in Stein Hospice?
Well, I see patients on good days. On days you give me, it's a bonus. Yesterday I saw patients, but on marketing days I usually visit doctors' offices. I'll go to nursing homes. I'll speak with social workers. I just try to go out and educate the doctors and the community about our hospice and how good our hospice is.
And what do you think the misconception doctors and, hospital employees have about hospice?
It's really hard to say. A lot of doctors do understand hospice, but I do believe it's hard for them to place their patients on hospice. I think they don't understand exactly when the right time is to put the people on hospice. A lot of people think that it really is the end of life, the last 3 days. They don't understand that you can start hospice about 6 months before. I mean, you don't know when they're going to die, but 6 months before. So they get to know the nurses, they get to know our staff, they get to know the home health aides. The families get help. They think it's at the last minute, and that's hard to convince the doctor to say, look, you really could put that patient on hospice now.
When you talk with doctors, I know you told us about the misconception they have, but do you think that they just are not getting it, or do you think that they really feel like they're giving up, that for them it's giving up on their patient, and so that's why it's hard for them to make the decision to recommend hospice?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think some doctors really get involved with their patients and the family. And maybe it's the family that is asking the doctor, please, is there something else you could do for my mother or my father? And the doctor feels a little bit that she needs not only to work with the patient, but the doctor, if it's a good family doctor, they work with the whole family. And then I think that it's very hard for them to predict. I mean, it's hospice is 6 months or less to live, and they're out to make their patients feel comfortable. And I think they're waiting until they're actually waiting for the patient to say to them, doctor, I've had enough, I've had enough. And that sort of gives the doctor a clue.
You mentioned families. Does hospice take care of families as well, other than just the patient?
Our hospice definitely takes care of families. This is why I work for this hospice. I don't think I could market for another hospice, but this hospice, I see the nurses, they fall in love with the caregivers, not only the patient, but the caregivers. And we really worry about how they're holding up. This is why we offer them different therapies, massage therapy, yoga therapy, pet therapy, harp therapy. We offer it to the patient, of course, but we encourage the family to accept these therapies, because we really are worried about them. They spend a lot of time with the patients. It's very hard. We're only there for a short time on a daily basis. The nurses aren't there every day, but our home health aides. But when we're gone, we know how hard it is for the families.
So the families can have all those therapies as well as the patient?
Oh, definitely. And even after their loved one goes, we continue to take care of the families. We have a bereavement support group, and we follow up with those families. Many times I'll see the family community, and I feel like I have a special relationship with them.
So I'm really happy as the clinical director that you got to meet 4 of the Stein Hospice nurses. I think you can see their passion for hospice, it just shines. The knowledge that they have is incredible. They not only can help you with physical, psychological, spiritual, and social issues during a terminal illness, but they can help you live whatever time you have, and nobody knows what that can be, to the fullest extent that you can with the greatest quality. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to call us at Stein Hospice.